All right, I'm ready to get started. My name is David, otherwise known in Lusternia as Roark Libertas. So a little bit about me. I live in Ohio. I'm married. I have 3 cats, Athena Warclaw, Freya Speartooth, and Patches. Besides programming, I like to brew beer, mead, wine. I also like to read, especially science fiction and philosophy. Sometimes my reading influences what I program on Lusternia. For example, the A/B lists, I oftentimes write the text for those when I program a skill set. For example, A/B nihilism. There's one of them says agony of a tortured heart, spasms of an unknown joy. That actually came right out of a philosophy book I was reading. Kind of a sick example, but there's a lot of that, especially in nihilism and a few other skill sets. Now, in the last broadcast, Star or Rob gave a background of where Lusternia came from. I'll give my side of that, how I got into Iron Realms and so forth. I started out in playing Achaea in college. I was a prominent occultist at the time. My roommate actually got me hooked on it. I saw him playing this, what I thought was a stupid, silly text game. There's no graphics, no sounds. Why would anyone want to bother with such a silly, dumb thing as that? I'm playing Quake 3 or whatever, but he convinced me to try it out, and like probably most of you, I was hooked very quickly and realized that, what was the appeal of this game. And eventually, I don't remember exactly how, but somehow I ended up coding for Achaea. I was never a god. I was getting free credits for my character. And at the time, Eris, who is now a star, was not in the game, but eventually she returned, and we collaborated on some stuff. The biggest one being the occultism skill set. That was really fun because I was an occultist, so I could play with the skill set after I coded it. But Eris was the actual designer, creator of the skill set. Although I did have some input, it was a very collaborative project. So that's how I met Estara. Currently with Lusternia, my role is largely development. I do not handle any kind of player issues, customer support type things, unless it somehow ties into the coding, like let's investigate, is the code working correctly. I don't do much with creative stuff. I like to think of Star and I as 2 halves of the same brain. I think that some psychologists say there's a left and the right side. I forget which one's which, but one's the creative side. That's Estara, coming up with all the great ideas for the game, and then for me, it's more of the analytical side of things, analyzing the idea, trying to analyze where will it work, where won't it work, how are we going to implement it, and so forth. Let's see, what else? I'm reading off some notes on my screen here. Okay. Some questions that you may not know to ask, but you might find interesting. How often have I met with Estara, aka Rob, or Matt from Iron Realms, aka Serapis from Achaea? The answer is 0. I have not met any of them in person. I've never really talked to Matt, or even on the phone. For Rob, I think I call him Rob when I'm referring to Star in the outside the game sense. We've talked on the phone briefly. If there's an emergency, I get a phone call. Hey, David, there's an emergency. Get on there right away. Hang up. And then one conversation on the phone where we're discussing our contracts for setting this up. So kind of the amazing thing of the internet is we started up this business, and my business partners, I've never seen them face to face and hardly ever talked to them, all through emails and chats and so forth. Something interesting, a piece of trivia, where Lusternia perhaps had a near disaster. When we were in development, we did about, I think this was covered in the last broadcast, we did about a year of development before the game opened. And this was just sitting on a Linux machine in my apartment, just next to my desk, and one day I noticed that the hard drive was out of disk space. And in fact, the database wasn't saving because it was out of disk space. It was all in memory. And there's probably a couple months worth of game, not code development, but world development. Areas, NPCs, quests. If there was a power outage, we would have lost all that. I don't know what kind of damage that would have done. But it was, say, a near miss. Once I found that, cleaned it up, we're good to go. And the problem was the backup process wasn't purging the old archives. That's what filled it up. So, let's see. Some other interesting things. Our original plans when we wanted to open called for 4 cities, 1 commune, guilds including the monks and bards you see today. The fact that we couldn't open with all that, I think, was a good thing. We've made a lot of improvements from the original idea. For example, one of the monk guilds for Celestia was supposed to be called the Golden Carp. I think the name we have now is a lot better than the Golden Carp. Plus our skill sets, I think, are designed better. You may notice I said originally we planned 1 commune, but now we have 2. Glomdoring was not in the original plan, but the commune showed up in our histories, and we reacted due to player demand. We shifted gears. Originally, we weren't going to even think about those sorts of things until we'd rolled out all the guilds and the 2 extra cities that we've more recently opened. Also, in our original plan, we were a lot more similar to Achaea. For example, the Sacraments skill set was originally called Devotion, and a lot of the skills were borrowed. And the ones that were most similar to K or not well fleshed out, we deferred those and ultimately didn't implement them to give us time to try to make sure it really works well. One other thing, some abandoned ideas you might be interested in. Originally we had 2 races that were abandoned. The kangaroo people, which I argued and pushed against, said this is just too silly, and I think Astara was glad I shot that one down.